What's more painful, battling on screen in constrained outfits?
It looks amazing, it feels terrible.
Or getting into the costumes and prosthetics themselves?
I mean, it's just a feeling of like claustrophobia.
We've got 20 of the most elaborate costumes and prosthetics that were a total nightmare to work with coming at ya.
I think it's gonna be a really fun surprise for the audience.
Number 1. It's a look. And ever since the reveal of the new Scarlet Witch at the end of WandaVision, we've grown to love this fierce character even more. And Olsen is way more into wearing this version. When the actress first joined the MCU for Civil War, she wasn't so into the constricting and totally impractical costume that was her corset.
That was the worst thing, is I did wear...
It was uncomfortable to battle in, but what really put the actress off was the fact that it was so revealing.
That's awful. Yeah. That's a terrible feeling.
When it was time to bring the new design to the MCU, Olsen was consulted to make sure that the outfit would work and make her feel like the superhero that she very clearly is. Number 2. Get a load of that cloak. It's one thing to wear a heavy costume or to carry around large outfits, but Cumberbatch was backed into a corner since he was in a harness and screwed into place very tightly. This was to ensure his safety while filming, but that didn't mean the actor was a fan of the situation.
As the cloak was coming on, I just sort of looked in the mirror and I started to smile like a giddy child.
He shared a struggle a few other superheroes have, explaining, "What was difficult was going for a bathroom break. You have to get out of it all and put it back on again. It was just arduous for everyone." Arduous for everyone, yes, but mostly Benedict.
That's quite often happens.
Number 3. Do the layers ever end? Chiwetel Ejiofor wears just as many layers in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness as he did in the first Doctor Strange film. An unfortunate reality for the actor. Layers on layers on layers? Well, they can only lead to one thing. An extremely overheated actor.
It was a full experience. It was like nothing else, really.
Number 4. He just wants a zip. What's funny is that during No Way Home, Holland discovered another Spidey did in fact have zips. Andrew Garfield's costume had small ones that allowed him to use his hands. Meanwhile, poor Tom was still using his nose trying to work his cell phone. One thing that all the Spider-Men struggled with.
Because I wear the suit, I can't go to the bathroom.
Garfield said,
"We were like, oh my god, like, you find it hard to pee in the suit, I find it hard to pee in the suit."
Oh yeah, and then there's the whole drinking with the mask on issue. Cue a straw going through an eye socket. And on top of all of that, Holland was getting all sorts of cuts and bruises around his wrists because of the gold gauntlets that he had to wear.
That's why when I shoot webs in the suit, I don't do this. I do this.
The Spidey struggle is real.
Those stupid gauntlets.
Number 5. Stepping into the role was tougher than he'd anticipated. There were big and painful shoes to fill for Wyatt Russell when he stepped in as Captain America. To begin, according to Russell, the Cap suit was hot. Very difficult.
It was, oh god, take it off.
The suit became a risk for the actor to wear on set as well, since it was such an uncomfortable costume that it re-aggravated an old injury from the actor's hockey days. Russell's hands were tied, and as a result, he shared that, "My shoulders kinda got screwed up, and things started to hurt just because of the position that the suit would put you in all day. And considering how many days they spent shooting, yeah. It sounds like this Cap was definitely hurting by the end of filming." Number 6. This is a Thor we never thought we'd see.
It was the hottest I've ever been.
Chris Hemsworth is strong, there's no doubt about it, but disguising himself as the out-of-shape version of Thor wound up requiring even more strength, since the fat suit he wore added about 60 to 70 pounds of weight to carry around. Then there was the hair, beard, and makeup portion. Needing to puff his cheeks out a bit resulted in a bit of a vocal change as well, but in the end, it worked shockingly well to bring this character to life.
I'm still worthy.
Number 7. Any guesses which costume aspect was the heaviest?
I was terrified of the suit.
Salma Hayek's first time in the MCU was brutal, and she got to know just how hard superhero costumes could be to work in.
I started unzipping myself in the middle of a movie because I just need to breathe.
So Hayek wasn't feeling nearly as fly as she was looking. Her headgear wound up being straight up dangerous, but for Salma, the goal was clear. Unfortunately, the actress did suffer brutal neck strain because of her wig and the headpiece. Number 8. It was Agatha all along. As incredible as she looked flying in the sky, underneath those dark and witchy-looking layers were some very necessary tools. For context, WandaVision was filmed in LA where there were some serious California fires happening at the time, which made the already hot state a brutal place to work. Kathryn Hahn was grateful for her secret weapon, explaining, "There was no way I could have done it without it. It was imperative." Beneath her costume was a cooling suit. The actress didn't want to deal with another layer, but it wound up being a blessing. Between takes, my amazing costume assistant Beth would squeeze coils of cold water underneath my costume. Teamwork makes the dream work. Also, cooling suits.
Like 100 and something degrees, and it was a whole team that built her.
Number 9. Did we expect this suit to be comfortable? Just looking at it, it's not too surprising that the suit caused the Black Widow actress a whole lot of grief. As Johansson put it, "It was so hot, I would wring out my socks at the end of the day." Yeah, this Avenger was sweating buckets in what was essentially a wetsuit. Unfortunately, Johansson had a frighteningly close call when she began to hallucinate during a big fight scene because she was so overheated. Number 10. Layers are cool, but it really depends on where you are. Filming in the Canary Islands sounds like a bit of a dream, but for the Druig actor, there were some seriously rough downsides.
For the forest line, which was weird.
Maybe if his costume hadn't been so heavy, it would have been easier, but the reality was, as Barry put it, there were 3 layers to it and I complained every day about it. Especially as we were filming in the heat. The actor, originally from Ireland, was not thriving in this extra hot climate, sweating endlessly and struggling to work through the nausea. Number 11. Now this one was a doozy. Djimon Hounsou didn't have it easy when it came to the transformation into his character. The actor was honest about his experience, saying it was 5 hours of makeup on a daily basis, and then the wardrobe was uncomfortable. And the worst part is, the costume could cause him even more harm because if he moved the wrong way, he would accidentally wind up cutting himself. Number 12. Out of this world looks take some time to perfect. Karen Gillan sports the Nebula look like a boss, and during filming of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, she celebrated having her Nebula makeup and prosthetics put on for the 170th time. Gillan is the first to admit that the look itself is pretty intense, calling it creepy and weirdly doll-like, childlike almost. Oh, and in order to gear up and all those prosthetic pieces, the actress needed to shave off her hair. At the end of the workday, Gillan was again reminded of just how irritating her makeup and prosthetics were, spending a long period in the makeup chair escaping the clothes of her character.
If you can take risks, and that's when the interesting stuff happens.
Number 13. Is there an actor under all that prosthetic? You bet there is, and Ben Mendelsohn has survived to tell the tale of his claustrophobic and intensely uncomfortable MCU costume. The ratio of time spent in the makeup chair versus on the set was pretty wacky, but it did enable him to embody the character completely, even if it did cause the actor some harm. He came, he sweat, he got lightheaded, his skin suffered, but in the end, he conquered. Number 14. How many prosthetics can you fit on one face? Dave Bautista might hold the record for the amount of special facial prosthetics that had to be applied to become his MCU character, Drax. The third Guardians movie saw Bautista once more enduring all the heavy layers of makeup for endless hours. The removal process is almost worse torture than actually wearing it. What did Bautista have to say about it? It's almost as long to take it off. It's like glue, it's so abrasive, so they take it off slowly. Number 15. He's always a vision. Paul Bettany has gotten used to 3.5-hour prosthetic application sessions, but it doesn't mean he likes them at all. When it was time for the black and white Vision in WandaVision, he was looking far more blue than we'd ever seen him. From a tight headpiece that doesn't allow him to hear, to full makeup and prosthetic application, only for everything to be redone with CGI anyway, Bettany really couldn't catch a break.
Yes. No. Yes. No. I don't know. Am I?
Number 16. Another overheated actor coming up. A black catsuit in 90-degree weather? It doesn't sound comfortable, and Chadwick Boseman confirmed. It is not. He often felt like his oxygen supply was essentially cut off when he was sealed into that suit. The fact that he couldn't even scratch itches he was getting because of the sweat trickling down his body was just an added layer of torture. Number 17. No surprise there were prosthetics involved on this one. Chris Sullivan went through the rite of passage so many MCU actors do, living through hours of painful prosthetics application. And while it was a nightmare each time, we can't ignore how realistic and incredible he looks on screen. Number 18. Was he going for the record of amount of prosthetics worn? All those marks on his body, the ones for every life he'd taken, the vicious scars were in fact individually applied prosthetics. Over 3,000 pieces were applied every day. The team and Jordan learned very quickly that filming fights in water with a ton of painstakingly applied prosthetics makes for a bit of a nightmare across the board.
Nah, I'm your king.
Number 19. 5 hours in a makeup chair? No big deal. Zoe Saldana is a pro at getting her makeup put on to become Gamora. She has spent hours doing it after all. She's also got a prosthetic forehead and cheekbones, which, let's face it, are never really comfortable. As for the feeling of green makeup covering most of the upper half of her body, it was almost as rough to deal with as the prosthetic removal process.
And sometimes we'd be a little overworked and a little tired.
Number 20. Now this just sounds like an uncomfortable suit. And you can bet it was. While over the years there have been many changes to make the famous suit a bit more bearable, Robert Downey Jr. got his fair share of overheated moments, aches, pains, and lasting bruises. All in a day's work as an Avenger. The fact is, superhero costumes usually lean more towards style than comfort, though we don't think these performers would mind some slight improvements here and there. Which character's prosthetics do you think would have been toughest to get applied?